Engineer Romulo.
Yes, good morning. Good morning.
Morning. How are you, sir?
Good, very good. Very good. How about you all?
We are okay here.
That's good. That's good.
Still MCO.
Same here.
Yeah, see.
Still captain.
Okay.
So how am I coming? My audio is good. How is my audio?
Oh, okay. You're loud and clear.
Okay, good. That's good. That's good. So everybody vaccinated already? Okay. Looks like we have a very good crowd, huh?
Looks like we have a total of 290 registered.
Oh, 290.
How many log in? I think I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
Maybe not reaching yet. Still early. And I think we are admitting.
Yeah, nice to hear.
Yeah. Okay.
Dear participants, kindly take note. The duration of this Zoom webinar session will be for 2 hours. All participants are requested to put your audio on mute. Questions can be typed on the chat box and the moderator will read out the questions. Please indicate your name and organization as well as to which speaker you would like to direct the questions. The webinar will begin shortly. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the AER webinar on Continuing Professional Development Program, CPD, an overview of CPD in ASEAN region. This webinar aims to share the importance of CPD, how the benefit of professional development could contribute to the self-learning and growth amongst professional engineers. Subsequently, to create a better understanding on the CPD processes in ASEAN countries. This event is organized by ASEAN Engineering Register Commission under AFIO in collaboration with the Institution of Engineers Malaysia, IEM, the Institution of Engineers Indonesia, PII, and the Philippine Technological Council, PTC. To start the proceeding, let us introduce the moderator for today's event, Engineer Dr. David Chua Jun Huang. Engineer Dr. David Chua received his Bachelor of Engineering Honours First Class degree from the University Technology Malaysia, Masters of Engineering degree from the National University of Singapore, and the Masters of Philosophy degree in Technology Policy, a professional practice program initiated by the Cambridge MIT Institute, CMI, delivered at Cambridge Judge Business School, and the PhD degree from the University of Cambridge. He is a chartered engineer registered under the Engineering Council UK and also a professional engineer with practicing certificate registered under the Board of Engineers Malaysia. Currently, Engineer Dr. David Chua is the Honorary Secretary of Institution of Engineers Malaysia. Engineer Dr. David Chua, the floor is yours.
Right, thank you, Ms. Wali, our MC, for the introductions. Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to AER webinars, Continuing Professional Development Program, CPD, and overview of CPD in ASEAN regions. Okay, today we are delighted to have distinguished speakers from ASEAN to share with us the importance of Continuing Professional Development Program, CPD, for professionals, engineers in their career growth as well as development of their expertise. They are none other than our engineer Muhammad Khairul Muhammad from the Institutions of Engineers Malaysia, IEM, Dr. Engineer Heru Devanto from the Institutions of Engineers Indonesia, PII, Engineer Romulo Agatet from the Philippines Technological Council, PTC. Before we proceed with the event, just an information we would like to share with the audience. The event has seen a good registrations of participants of 222 from 16 countries, right? It's very encouraging to see this number of participants from around ASEAN and also Middle East. Thank you for supporting this event. Without further ado, let me introduce our first speakers, Engineer Muhammad Khairul Muhammad. A short bio about Engineer Muhammad Khairul. Engineer Muhammad Khairul is the Vice President of the Institutions of Engineers Malaysia, IEM. He is also currently the Chairman of the Training and Education (T&E) Committee, Board of Engineers Malaysia, BEM, and the lead CPD auditors. The T&E Committee of BEM is responsible to plan and monitor the implementations of CPD for registered professionals persons. Let's welcome Engineer Muhammad Khairul Muhammad.
Hello, there's no sound.
Okay. Okay.
Now better, thank you.
Okay, now. Okay. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to everybody. Been here today. I'm sorry, just now some technical problem. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, Dr. Chua, for a kind introduction. First of all, thank you very much to AER and AFIO for giving me opportunity to talk this morning. The whole thing here this morning is just I will be sharing the CPD programs for engineers in Malaysia, and I want to share the experience on how the CPD program being planned and implemented in Malaysia. A brief biodata of me, I think will be circulated later by PDF if you want, but just a brief background. Basically, I'm also the AFIO Secretary General and the Vice President of IEM. And currently, I'm the lead auditor for the Board of Engineers Malaysia, who are responsible in the plan and the implementation of the CPD in this country. An overview of the outline of presentation. Basically, this morning, my plan is just to give an overview about what CPD is all about in this country. And most importantly, we're going to look into the type of CPD activities and how we do it, what are the CPD activities being accepted here in Malaysia, and also the CPD hours requirement in this country. And I will touch a little bit on the CPD audit process and the later on some maybe suggestion on how we proceed from there. Just an overview here is this in this country here, the engineering practice in Malaysia, the main regulatory body is the Board of Engineers Malaysia, or we call it BEM. So the role is to regulate the profession and the practice of engineering, and it was formed under the law or the act, statutory act by the Parliament, Malaysian Parliament, and the main provision is to protect the safety and the public interest in the engineering profession. And the requirement of a BEM, it is a mandatory registration to all the people who wish to practice engineering, including all the engineering technicians and the inspector of work as well. I'm going to explain later on what the inspector of work is. The other professional body and learned society is IEM, the Institution of Engineers Malaysia, is registered under the Registrar of Society. Basically, the function is to promote the science and profession of engineering in all the engineering discipline. And registration with IEM actually is voluntary. Basically, it's just a learned society membership. So these are the two different body or different role between the Board of Engineers, who are the regulatories, and IEM is the learned society. The basis for CPD is the Registration of Engineers Act of Malaysia 1967. Under Part 3 of Registration of Engineers, all engineers, all professional engineers are required to renew yearly their certificate of registration, especially for professional engineers. And of course, we have to make payment, the fees for annual renewal. And the other condition under this act is to satisfy condition as may be determined by the Board of Engineers. And this condition actually is a mandatory in this country for the professional engineer to renew the certificate of registration by having a continuing or attending a continuing professional development program. And that is described under the circular number 2 in the CPD requirement of Board of Engineers Malaysia. So the CPD in this country was first introduced in 2008, and under 2008 when they introduced, this is just a voluntary basis, but now since 2017 it's become mandatory to renew the certificate, which is a license to practice for professional engineers. And here in this country, we call it registered person. Registered person under Board of Engineers Malaysia, we are categorized is under, for the CPD purpose, we categorize in 3 main group or categories of registered person. One is a professional engineer with practicing certificate of PEPC. Another one is just PE, or just professional engineers. And the third category of registered person is inspector of work. Inspector of work, or IOW. And the different role or category are prescribed in our REA, or Registration Engineers Act 1967, where basically PEPC, the difference between PE and PEPC, both are professional engineer status, but PEPC is the person who are able to submit to the local authority, submit plan submission as well as design to the local council and local authority in this country. So that is slightly different between those two. Other than that, both category are professional engineers, while IOW is this, maybe you can say a technician or diploma level in engineering. Basically, their role is to assist the professional engineer and PEPC in the supervision of engineering work. And this one, we introduce it generally for the construction industry. I'm just touch a little bit on the rationale why we have to have CPD. As you all know, systematic maintenance, improvement, and broadening the engineering technical knowledge and skills. This is to enable the engineers or professional here to continue competent performance of engineering and related professional technical responsibility. Of course, this is also, CPD also is avenue for development of personal qualities for execution of professional and technical duty throughout the working life of every professional engineer, as well as in our case also inspector of work. But my presentation today will be touch more on the professional engineers rather than the inspector of work. And of course, the other main objective here is just to keep up to date. The purpose of having CPD is just to keep up to date with changes. If there's any changes in the engineering codes, the rules and regulation and guideline in terms of engineering practice. So this is one avenue to reason why we introduce CPDs. When we talk about CPD in this country, we look into the cumulative CPD activities over 1 calendar year, which is January to December of every year. That is a calendar year for the CPD purpose. And basically, this annual CPD program will be reflected in terms of how many CPD hours per year you collect by the professional engineers, or in general by registered person. So when we call it registered person here in this talk today, refers to the professional engineers. And basically CPD activities, we define CPD activities as any activities, generally engineering, of course it can be non-engineering as well, which is not within the normal or routine job scope of registered person while being employed or professionally engaged. These activities on the CPD activities, basically the activities will directly contribute to the competence of the said registered person. So the key word here is that any activities, it can be engineering or non-engineering, not generally not within the normal or routine job scope. For example, if you are a lecturer who are also a professional engineer, if your main job is a lecturing, for example, so that is not counted. Your activities of lecture is not, it's a CPD activities, because that is a routine job for your okay, so general definition, any activities normally engineering which make the PEPC perform continuously as engineer providing the professional engineering service. So that is what CPD is all about. I will elaborate more when we talk about each types of CPD activities. Okay. In terms of Malaysian regulation of CPD, we categorize the CPD activities into 5 basic categories. The first one is the formal education and training. The second category will be informal learning activities or on-job learning and private studies. Category 3 is conference and technical meetings. Category 4, presentation of paper, which is include the publication of papers as well. And category 5, the engineering service activities. We'll go one by one on description of what category 1 is. Formal education and training. Basically, when we talk about formal education and training as a CPD, is engineering studies and training leading toward the awards of certificate, diploma, or higher degree with a formal assessment. So this is the main things here, is that it has this sort of activity that have assessment, examination or anything, and also awarding a degree or diplomas or certificates. This category 1 under formal education and training, it can be training under full-time mode or part-time or even long-distance formal program and training courses. Was said here just now, leading to a formal qualification, a postgraduate program, for example, diploma, master, even PhD are all under this category and must have a formal assessment. Second category is the informal learning activities, on-job learning. Basically, this is category of activities that something like the engineering understudy or learning from a subject matter expert or equivalent to it. And by learning this one, you'll be able to perform a new engineering task. So self-study, it can be also under this one, informal learning, a private or self-study through access engineering related reading material, whether hard copy or even online, and with the aim of increasing knowledge, capability, and competency. So what are the example of the category 2As here? Is on-job learning, workplace requirement, for example, like new software, AutoCAD software, new machine, or product briefing, that can be under category. For example, if you are design engineer, but part of increasing your skill, there's a new version of AutoCAD software, for example, that you attended the courses and so on, internally in-house, something like that, or self-learning, that can be under this category. Also, reading the books, journal, manuals, or magazine. For example, if you are, in our case, we have IEM monthly magazine or bulletin. So if you read that magazine or related to engineering activities, that can be considered part of your private studies. So category 3 is under conferences and technical meetings. So by attending the conference or participating in engineering conference, seminar, forum, and similar technical gathering in meeting, which provide the environment to gain the insights and knowledge as well as a base for engineering development. Like even today by if you are attending the seminar or the webinar on CPD, this is under this category. Again, this is not only limited to the engineering. So topics like anything related to engineering management, corporate governance, engineering management, accounting principle, law, are all can be accepted under this category. Even non-engineering subjects are accepted, and if it's consider job-related purpose, and this is for you to enhance the competency to perform service as engineer, that is accounted for. Here we always speak about, even if you take scuba diving, if this is part of your competency to perform. For example, you are offshore engineer, you're doing the underwater testing, which require the, so that is part of the CPD, if you take scuba diving for purpose of performing your services. And even attending different discipline of seminar, like for example, civil engineer attending M&E conference, or electrical engineer attending training on basic course in civil engineering, for example, all these are part of your CPD activities. Of course, category 4 is the presentation of paper. If you are presenting a paper and even publish paper as engineer, doing you are research engineer and so on, so this could be accepted under this category 4. Under category 5, engineering service activities. All engineering related activities such as giving talks, lecture, serving on committee, participating in engineering program, accreditation, become a mentor to young engineers or young inspector of work, and service in industry advisor to an institution of learning. All these are performed in the course of contributing to and promoting the engineering profession. All these are under engineering service activity. For example, now being a part of IEM members now, I'm giving a talk here. So this is my, I can claim the CPD under this category 5, which is service activities. If I'm the committee or in any of the IEM, for example, or I'm serving in a committee, or any of you serving in the committee of Board of Engineers. So this is part of the engineering service activities under category 5. So they hold a lot more things, but as long as category 5 service activities, as long as what you are doing is not part of your normal or routine job, and that is considered service activities under this. Okay, now how do we define what a CPD hours is? Because different country has different rule of defining what CPD. For example, some country said it as CPD units. Some countries said CPD points. In Malaysia, we describe it as a CPD hours. Basically, the hours of involvement in CPD activities. For example, now, if you're attending this course, this webinar for 2 hours, if it's under category 3 just now, as I described, that is basically is 2 CPD hours in our case, generally. So generally in our case is one, depending on the activity, general is 1 actual contact hours is 1 CPD hours. But we will see later on some activities like informal learning, we have some weightage. It could be described if 1 actual hours can be half or even can be double, depending on the type of activities. But in general, it's 1 hour CPD is 1, meaning is 1 contact hours of that activities. Okay, I said just now, depending on the 5 activities, we have what we call it factors or time-weighted factors. For example, in category formal education and training just now, like if you are attending the master's degree course, that is formal education. So 1 actual hours, we give it 2 CPD hours. So there's a factor here. And for informal learning activities, 1 actual hours is equivalent to 1. And for private study, like a reading magazine just now, I said, just now reading engineering magazine and so on, we give about half. For example, 1 actual hours of reading, we give 0.5 CPDs. For conference 1, but for presentation of papers, because depending on, you take a lot of time to publish a papers and so on. So 1 actual hours or maybe 1 paper you present, we define is about 10 CPD hours. So you can see it's variation of CPDs given in this case. So of course, certain activities we have limit and certain activities, for example, no limits at all. For CPD, I got about 5 more minutes, yeah. For CPD requirement, in this country now for PEPC, for professional engineer with practicing certificate, 50 CPDs hours is required. So, but we look into the whole 3 years. For total 3 years, we need 1 PEPC to have 150 CPD in 3 years. For PEPC is less, half than that. For IOW is even lesser. So I don't want to elaborate too much on this one, but this is a general requirement for this one. So I skip this one. So how we calculate a CPD here is all depend on, as I mentioned just now, it's all depend on the actual contact hours time the weighted CPD hours and so on. For example, if you are attending formal education, like you are attending doing the MBA study, for example. So MBA study, as an example, for 1 semester, if you follow semester system, 3 subject, 9 credits hours in terms of contact hours of 1 semester if 16 weeks. So if based on this calculation, you can claim, we accept the claim of 288 CPD hours, and that's plenty. So that's why if we encourage a formal education, there will be a lot of point CPD hours being accepted in this. So I skip a little bit on this one. On the pre-approved CPD activities, basically something like categories 3 just now. We have also what we call it pre-approved CPD. Pre-approved CPD, generally to get the approval, we need to know about the title and the topic of the CPDs. And we need to know what synopsis of the CPD, and of course the date and venue, and the itinerary, the program, the activity schedule, the program, and the background of the speakers. For example, this is one example of IEM talk or courses. For basically just one full day course is equivalent to 7 hours, 7 CPD hours. And we give a proper reference and so on. So, but basically the main requirement to get being approved, the background of the speakers is the program, the actual, because we need to know the actual hours, and the title and the synopsis of this one. Okay, I got about a few more minutes. Basically, we do from time to time, we do the audit as well when people submit. And the purpose of audit is basically to see whether when you submit just CPD, this the hours declaration and so on, is it appropriate or not? I'm sharing here just a quick check with this one. How we do audit here in this country, basically we'll do a random audit of to the registered person. For example, in this country, we got roughly about close to 14,000 professional engineer and PEPC. In random, we do about maybe 2% of the registered person, and this is typical. Basically, we do when we check. Basically, we'll do whether what they submit is we accept in full or accept with some reduction. For example, they claim 50, we accept. They claim 43, for example, we deduct depending on the nature of the training and the CPD, or we required further submission, or if necessary, we call for interview to ask for clarification, and if we can even take action up to disciplinary action if we found something is not satisfactory to the requirement. So this is how we do the CPD activities. So in general, our experience so far in the CPD audits, basically most of our professional engineers are not giving enough information sometimes. Although our system, because of we submit online, our system may not be able to receive the complete document. So some of the other mistakes is that they declare in wrong category, declare part of the work as CPD activities, and sometimes our CPD activities are like private study, is like a self study. Even that also they didn't claim. So that is maybe because of the awareness of this one. So with that, I want to conclude this presentation, say that basically in our case is the general concept of CPD here is that any activities we accept as long as the activities normally makes our registered person, our professional engineer to perform continuously well as engineer in providing professional engineering service. And CPD is also requirement, currently requirement by all other professional bodies in Malaysia, including the surveyor, the accountant, the legal, fraternity lawyers and so on, lembaga architect and so on. And with that, that will be end of my presentation. This list of reference may be useful later on for some of you to refer in terms of Malaysia. And then I think with that, I thank for listening. There will be Q&A later on. I'll pass back to the moderator for. Thank you very much for the listening. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Engineer Muhammad Kil, for the sharings. Right. To show our appreciation for your informative sharing sessions today, we would like to present to you an e-certificate of appreciation. Great. Thank you so much again, Engineer Muhammad Kil. Okay, as mentioned just now, if you have any questions, we'll wait towards the end of this webinars. We will have a Q&A sessions later, and you can post your questions to our speakers. Next, we move on to our second speaker, Dr. Engineer Heru Dovanto, a well-known face who doesn't need much of introductions, especially to the ASEAN community. Dr. Engineer Heru, currently the President of the Institutions of Engineers Indonesia, PII. He has over 25 years of experience in infrastructures investment and business developments, stretching from power, toll roads, railways, LRT, clean water supply, terminals to housing in leading global corporations and national enterprises. He is also leader of various professional organizations, internationally and locally, in the areas of infrastructures and engineering and technology. Dr. Heru, the floor is yours now.
Thank you, moderator. Good morning, everyone. A very good morning to you. How many minutes do I have? David?
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
Yes.
Perhaps I just go straight to the presentation. But first of all, let me thank the organizer for organizing this very important events concerning CPD. And I would like also to take this opportunity to share the latest development in Indonesian engineering. For the first few slides, I will bring you to the latest development in Indonesia engineering arrangement, because since 2019, basically, Indonesia has transformed the engineering arrangement, the engineering organization quite significantly, quite fundamentally. So let me explain to you the education and vocation and profession structure in Indonesia. Starting from secondary school, when you finish your high school, then you have three choices, whether you go for academic route, profession routes, or vocational routes. If you continue your academic education, then you will going through the academic education at the universities, where you can get the title of Bachelor of Engineering. But then if you continue your study in academic route, then you will get the magister or master degree. Yeah, we call it S2 here. Or you can also continue with your doctorate study. If you choose to continue your career in the professional world, then you can continue with, if you're a Bachelor of Engineer, then you can continue with your engineer profession education. Yeah, then you will get the title of engineer. The odd things here is that the engineer profession education is organized by universities, yeah, not by a professional organization. But this is the law in Indonesia at the moment. Yeah. So when you finish your profession engineer education, then you can continue with the professional route. You get your PE, junior PE, PE, and then senior PE. Now, if you are a high school graduate and you continue your career and education following the vocational route, then you will follow this a diploma education, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and 4 years. If you finish 4 years vocational education, then you can continue your education with Magister for Applied Engineering, and then Doctor in Applied Engineering. Or you can also continue with professional route, where you are, if you are a Bachelor of Applied Engineer, yeah, after 4 years education of Applied Engineering, then you can continue to get your PE, junior PE, and so forth. So basically, this is the structure of Indonesian system education, Indonesian educational system. Now, since 2019, yeah, so my administration started in December 2018. So basically from 2019, since I'm elected as the president of the institution, for the last 2 years, we have been transforming the Indonesian engineers so that we have been entering the new era of Indonesian engineering. PII before was sort of LS, NGO, non-government organization. It was simply a professional organization. But today, PII has transformed itself not only as the registered body. In Malaysia, you have IEM and BEM, Board of Engineers, and I believe Board of Engineers is a registered body. So PII is both, actually, both professional engineer, a professional organization, and registered body. But actually even more than that. Why? Because this engineer value chain, starting from educational level, continue with engineer profession education. This the second chain, and the third chain is certification for professional engineer, and the fourth chain is registration of professional engineer, and the fifth chain is international recognition. So let me start from the first chain, which is the academic education at universities. Before, the standardization for academic education at universities is done by the government through what it called as the Board of Accreditation of the universities, which is belong to the government. But today, the accreditation or standardization of all technical study program in all university in Indonesia is done by PII. So PII is now doing the standardization of technical study program in all universities in Indonesia, for both at national level and international level. The international level is done by IAB, the Indonesian. Can I continue or?
Yeah, please go ahead, Dr. Heru.
Okay. So the international accreditation is done by IAB PII, the Indonesian Accreditation Board of Engineering Education. You know that in 2019, we have been qualified as the provisional member of the Washington Accord through IAB PII. Then for national accreditation, it is done starting from this year by the we call it the SLAM technique, which is the national accreditation for all technical study program at universities. Now moving on to the engineer profession program. Yeah, this is applicable for Bachelor of Engineers, Bachelor of Applied Engineers, and other professions like science, as long as they are doing or working at the engineering field, then they can continue their education to get the title of engineer. What is the role of PII here? PII is the parties, even though this is done actually by universities, but the standard of the program is done by PII. Yeah. So those who are going to get engineer title, they go to universities, but the curriculum and the standard is done by PII. So PII basically work together with universities to set up the standard for engineer profession program to get the title of engineer. Now moving on to the certification of PE, professional engineers. It was done only by PII before, but since now PE certification become mandatory for those who are going to do the practicing engineering in Indonesia, now we have to nationalize the certification system involving all engineer professional organization. With that, to standardize this, PII doing the accreditation for all engineer professional organization, so that they can, together with PII, also to issue certification for professional engineers. The next step is for registration of professional engineers. Registration of professional engineers is done by PII as well. And for this purpose, basically we have digitalized the whole value chain of engineers. No more doing manual, but now it's done all through digital system. So we have introduced Symphony. Symphony is the digital management system of PII. The next step is basically international recognition. Yeah, that after we obtain the PE certification, then basically we try to obtain the international recognition through the SCPE, ASEAN Chartered Professional Engineers, APEC Engineer Registers, and also AER. And this is describing, unfortunately, most of this is still in Bahasa, but trying to explain here that when you finish your Bachelor of Engineering, we call it Sarjana Teknik in Indonesia, then you can continue your engineer profession program, where you can get the title of engineer. Then you continue your career practicing engineers until you can pass the competence test to get PE certification. Once you are certified, then you can be registered and you have the license to practice as an engineer. Then you continue with CPD, continuous professional development. This is the basically certificates that you can get. First of all, this is the certificate of engineer. If you join the professional engineer program at universities, which its curriculum and other standard basically prepared by PII to support the universities, then you will get the certificate with 2 logos and 2 signatures. Logo of the universities, logo of PII, signatures of president of PII and rector of universities. This is for the title of engineer. Then certification of PE. This is the certificate of PE, signed by president of PII and the College of Engineers or the president of the engineering professional organization. And next, what you will get is the register number, registration number as a professional engineers, which function as the permit for practicing engineering. That's basically the whole concept of the new era of engineering in Indonesia. It's never be the same again, and PII basically has a role in all aspects of engineering, starting from educational, academic education at universities until international recognition of professional engineers. Okay, now we're entering into the next slide, which is the CPD. The CPD basically, we have the legal reference. The first is the Indonesian laws, Indonesian Act, number 11, 2014. Basically, for 5 years, these engineering laws cannot be implemented because the implementing regulation has not been issued at that time. But in 2019, finally, the government issued what we call it as the Indonesian government regulation, as the implementing regulation from the engineering laws issued in 2014. That's why I said that the process of applying the engineering law is actually started in 2019. And the transformation of engineering in Indonesia started in 2019. Now, for the last 2 years, we have been transforming the whole engineering system, and we are now entering into the new era of engineering in Indonesia. And CPD basically is regulated under this clause 23 of the laws, and also in the government regulation. This is the legal reference from the laws. Basically, in chapter 8, it is written about the CPD. The aims, the objective of the CPD, that CPD was organized by PII, and then the standard basically is established by Indonesian Board of Engineers. So let me explain, there is also another Board of Engineers in Indonesia. But Board of Engineers in Indonesia is not a registered body. They, in the policy making, but all the implementation, all the what you call it, the registration is done by PII. And then a continuous CPD is a condition for the extension of the registration, what you call it, the registration number for PE. Now, from the government regulation in clause 21, it's also written here about the CPD, that the CPD is applicable for 5 years because the registration applied for 5 years. And then saying again that this is organized by PII and so forth and so forth. Now the CPD mechanism chart. First of all, if you are a junior PE or you are just granted PE certificate, what you have to do following to that for the next 5 years, you need to fill in the digital logbook provided in our digital platform named Symphony. At room 3, you have a CPD dashboard where you can fill in your logbook. And this room 3, which is the digital logbook, will be activated once you are granted a PE and will be deactivated after 5 years. Every 6 years, every 6 months, the system will remind us to fill in the logbook so that we don't forget to fill in the logbook. And then after 5 years, when you are deactivated from room 3, then you can claim your CPD points from the CPD dashboard. Then you can get the final score after assessment of the CPD. This is all done by digital system. Yeah. Now, how it is applied in our digital system. If you open our website, then you will see membership, certification, and registration. If you click certification, then you can see CPD. And CPD, you can see CPD training, CPD standard, CPD form, and CPD consultation. If you click CPD training, it will tell you all the trainings provided by the Institution of Engineers Indonesia. All this learning and training is provided by our PII, and the name of this is PII Learning Center. So PII Learning Center provided all the trainings for those who want to claim their CPD. Besides PII Learning Center, of course, you can do anywhere. But PII provide this service to improve your CPD score. If you go to the standard, CPD standard, then it will explain to you basically what activities that you can do. There is a one, first of all, education and training, and then further education, training and courses. For junior PE and PE, training and courses is mandatory. For senior PE, this is not mandatory. You can, it's a choice for you to do it. This English version basically is prepared by my staff, may not be correctly explain the translation from Indonesian language. But for the time being, our digital system still in Bahasa, not yet in English. So this is just translation from the Bahasa. So there are still some not very precise translation. This is self-learning, meaning you you do this training on yourself in your company. If you have in-house training, job assignment, and everything like that, you can claim it. Initial CPD means that for the first 5 years of your initial CPD, after you are granted a PE, then after 5 years, we call it renewal CPD. So the first 5 years and the 5 years following to that, we have different standards. Yeah. Okay, that's first of all, education and training, self-learning, and then professional meeting and workshops, paper and journal, yeah, including technical report, expert review report, paper on professional meetings, and so forth. And then articles on newspaper and magazines, of course, technical papers, article on official website, books, or models. And then supporting facilities. You are expert in some organization on some projects. And second, organizer of professional institution. If you are active in professional institution with certain position, then you can also claim your CPD. If you are lecturers, or if you get some awards and then site visit to related industry, you can as well claim your CPD. Now for the scoring, if you do it for 1 day, minimum 6 hours, then your score is 5. 2 to 3 days, 10. 4 to 5 days, 25, and so forth. This is the scoring system. And then for papers and journal, if a national publication, you get score 10. If it's reviewed, 15, international, 15, and so forth. Now, this is the scoring system. Basically, every year, you need to collect 40 scores if you are a junior PE, 50 scores if you are a PE, and 60 per year if you are a senior PE. So in 5 years, you have to collect a credit of 200 if you are a junior PE, 250 if you are a PE, and 300 if you are senior PE. Yeah, this is mandatory and choices. From out of the 40 scores, 20 is mandatory, 20 is from choices. Now, if you click CPD form, now you can come into this point. Basically, there will be a form for you to fill in, yeah, to claim your CPD, sort of logbook. Or you can create a new form. Basically, there will be explanation for your certification, your IP number or PE number, time period, type, college, civil engineering or mechanical engineering, and so forth. And then period of certification. and also status. Okay. Now, if you click, for example, the form, the logbook, the page 1, they will see the basic information of yourself, name, and so forth. And then if you click education, then you can claim your education there. If you continue your education, when you obtain your engineer PE, for example, is a Bachelor of Engineers, then if you then continue your education to get master degree, for example, then you claim your CPD score here by entering your education, in what degree, and all this information about your education, faculty, subject, university name, address, email, academic credit amount, the thesis topics, and so forth, basically. And then you also have to upload your certificate. You have to upload your certificate here. Then it goes on and goes on to fill in your logbook. Then you have to do it regularly. The system will remind you every 6 months. You continue to fill in your logbook, and you have to collect at least 40 for PE and so forth. In 5 years, you have to collect a certain target for your CPD score. Now, if you have some issues and need to consult, then we provide also a consultation, which basically a help desk for all who want to get some assistance from the system. I think that's all my sharing from the latest situation in Indonesia. First of all, about the transformation of engineering Indonesia, starting with transformation of PII itself, and then how we convert everything for the last 2 years from manual to digital. Basically, the whole stretch of engineer value chain in Indonesia has been converted into digital, and PII basically has transformed itself from simply an LSM, an NGO, to become kind of engineer authority, because we are not only a registered body, not only professional organization, but basically we are involved in each and every chain in the engineering value chain, starting from technical academic education at universities until international recognition at the regional and international. With that, I end this presentation with big thanks to the organizer and all the audience. Good morning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Heru, for your presentations. So to show our appreciations to your very crisp and to the point sessions today, we would like to present to you an e-certificates.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Heru. All right, last but not least, now we would like to come to our final speaker, Engineer Romulo Agatep, a vastly experienced and well-known around ASEAN. He brings with him a wealth of knowledge in CPD activities. A practicing professional engineers must undertake to one's knowledge, skills, or judgment, and enable a practicing engineer to be more productive. understand and apply advances in technology, faces challenges in career directions, and better serve the communities. Engineer Romulo Agatep is licensed professional electronics engineer with more than 35 years of working experience. Engineer Romulo holds double degree graduated in Bachelor of Science, Electronic Engineering, as well as Bachelors of Science in Electronics and Communications Engineering. In the industry arena, he is currently the Chief Executive Officer of TeleGlobal Corporations, a corporation involved in the design and constructions of the telecom and broadcast towers, and principal for RA Consult, a consultancy firm engaged in design of electronic systems. And APEC engineers and ASEAN engineer respectively. Engineer Romulo is the country registrar of Philippines, representing the Philippines Technological Council, PTC, under the AER commissions. Let's welcome Engineer Romulo.
Hi, David. Thank you very much for that very nice and generous introduction. Thank you. Of course, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Engineer Muhammad, the FAO SecGen, and of course, Dr. Hiro Dewanto, the FAO Secretariat, and of course, my friend, the AR Commissioner, Engineer Yao Chao-Fong. So my presentation today, I will just go direct to the professional development program of the Philippines, but I'd like to give you some background. By the way, my audio is good. My audio is good on my presentation. Can you see now my presentation?
Yeah, it's good. Maybe yeah, it's okay.
How about my presentation? Is it okay?
Okay.
Okay, good. So as I was saying, I will go directly to the CPD program of the Philippines. But I would like to give you some background that we have about 42. Actually, it's 57 regulated profession. There are about 42 BS degrees and about 15 technologies and technicians. And all these professions are regulated under the Professional Regulation Commission, and they have to renew their license every 3 years. And renewing their license, they have to present a CPD credit unit once they renew their license. So we like to define how we define the CPD development, the continuing professional development in the Philippines. It refers to the inculcation, assimilation, and acquisition of knowledge, skills, proficiency, and ethical and moral values that raise and enhance the professional technical skills and competence. So the nature of CPD program in the Philippines is that the CTP program consists of properly planned and structured activities, the implementation of which requires the participation of a determined group of professionals to meet the requirements of maintaining and improving the operational standards, ethical standards and ethics of the professions. So what is the legal basis of our CPD? Section 14, Article 12 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution provides that the sustained development of a reservoir of national talents consisting of Filipino scientists, entrepreneurs, professionals, managers, high-level technical manpower and skilled workers, and craftsmen in all fields shall be promoted by the states. And the state shall encourage appropriate technology and regulate its transfer from the national benefits. So there are 42, as I said, 42 plus about 15 technologies and technician regulated profession in the Philippines. And each profession has its own law that regulate their practice of profession. Some of the regulated profession, the continuing professional development is already embodied in their respective law. So so as not to confuse, no, the Congress of the Philippines to harmonize or the implementation of all the CPD across the profession, the Philippine Congress enacted the CPD law of 2016. So what is this CPD law of 2016? We call it the Republic Act 10912, the Continuing Professional Development Act of 2016. It's a law mandating and strengthening the continuing professional development programs for regulated profession, creating a continuing professional development council and appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes. So in that same law, we have this declaration of policy. In all the laws that we craft or all the laws that the Congress craft, there is always a declaration of policy. In section 2, it's hereby declared the policy of the state to promote and upgrade the practice of profession in the country. Towards this end, the state shall institute measures that will continuously improve the competence of the professional in accordance with the international standard of practice, thereby ensuring their contribution in uplifting the general welfare, economic growth, and development of the nation. So what is the objective of the CPD? The overarching goals of the CPD shall be the promotion of the general welfare and interest of the public in the course of delivering professional services. Towards this end, CPD programs shall strive to, 1, continuously improve the quality of country's reservoir of registered professionals by updating them on the latest scientific, technological, ethical, and other applicable trends in the local and global practice of profession. Number 2 is to provide support to lifelong learning, to the enhancement of competencies of Filipino professionals towards delivery of quality and ethical services locally and globally. Number 3 is to deliver quality CPD activities aligned with the Philippine Qualification Framework for national relevance and global comparability and competitiveness. Then also in this law, it provides the creation of a different CPD council. No? The law provides that every regulated profession shall create a continuing professional development council called the CPD Council, and shall compose of chairperson and 2 members. So if you have about 42 or 57 regulated profession, so you have about 52 or 57 CPD council. And all the CPD council are the one looking and implementing the different CPD on their profession. So there is a profession, a chairperson, and there are 2 members. And what are the powers of the CPD Council? One is to ensure the advocate and appropriate provision of the CPD programs, evaluate and act application for accreditation of CPD providers, CPD programs, and self-directed learnings, monitor the implementation by the CPD providers and their programs, assess annually and upgrade the criteria for accreditation of CPD providers and CPD programs, conduct researches, studies, and benchmarking for international alignment of CPD programs, issue operational guidelines. So the Republic Act 10912 is the foundation documents of the continuing professional development in the Philippines that all professionals should adhere to. And compliance with the CPD program is a moral obligation of each professional and within the context of the concerned professional's code of ethics, and is considered a necessary, effective, and credible means of ensuring competence, integrity, and global competitiveness. So these are the matrix of the CPD activities that we have. So we have the program or the activity, then we call it the credit units. For seminar workshop, there's if you're a participant, you get 1 credit unit per hour. If you are a resource speaker, you get 5 credit units per hour. If you are a panelist or a reactor, you get 3 credit units per hour. Facilitator or moderator, you get 2 credit units per hour. For postgraduate specialty training, master's degree, 1 credit unit per academic unit, plus 20 credit unit upon completion of your master's degree. For doctoral degree, 2 credit unit per academic unit, plus 30 credit unit upon completion of your degree. Then residency, externship, specialty and sub-specialty, 10 credit unit per year. And for fellowship, you got 15 credit unit per year. Okay, for self-directed learning, these are the what we call the informal learnings, no? Training module, 10 credit unit per complete set of module. Then technical paper, 5 credit unit per technical paper. If you have some research work, it's 10 credit unit per research work. If you have a book, it's about 50 credit unit. If you wrote an article, it's 8 credit unit. A professional journal editor, you as a editor, you get 5 credit unit per issue. And if you are a peer reviewer of a paper, you get 2 credit unit per article. Inventions, if you have some invention that you already working and it becomes some sort of commercially available, you get full credit unit for the compliance period, meaning it is the compliance period is 3 years, so you get the full credit for the whole 3 years. Then short-term post and graduate and in-service training, no? This is 2.25 per 0.25 credit unit per hour, maximum of 30 credit unit per training. Study tours, visit, 2 credit unit per day, maximum of 20 credit unit per tour. Okay, this is the example of summary of activities claim. No? If you are now claiming an activities, and this is how you present, no? When once you claim for the activities. You have the reference, you have the date, you put down the CPD providers, what is the CPD activities, the actual hours, what is the weight factor, and what is the credit unit. No? Let's say the date is October 10, 2020, and the provider is the Institute of Electronics Engineers of the Philippines. And if you are a resource speaker and you speak for about 2 hours, and as per our requirements, it says 5 credit unit per hour, so you gain 10 credit unit. So as a panelist, a reactor, if you sit there for 3 hours as a panelist or reactor, and the weight factor is 3 credit unit per hour, you get 9 credit unit. As for the study tours, no, let's say you study at UCLA, study tours, and you was there for almost 6 days. So you get 2 credit unit per day, and your total is 12 credit unit. So for a year, you can get maybe for professional, you get 45, and for the technologist and technician, you have at least you have 30 per year. So that is the summary of all those credit units we have to claim. Okay, so I think that's the last slide of my presentation, and thank you very much for listening. It's a very short one, but I reserve the question and answer if you have some question regarding my presentation. Thank you, and maraming salamat sa inyo lahat. Back to the moderator, please.
Right. Thank you so much, Engineer Romulo. for your presentations. So to show our appreciation to your in-depth sharing today, we'd like to present to you an e-certificate. Thank you again, Engineer Romulo.
Thank you very much for the certificate of appreciation. Thank you.
Okay. Now we come to the exciting part of the webinars, which is the Q&A sessions. We have seen many questions coming in through the chat box. Maybe I can help to read out the question. I know that some of the speakers, they are very kind. They already answered the questions in the chat box, but I can read out the questions. Maybe the speakers can help to answer so that everyone is to the benefits of all the audience. Okay. Okay, so we have a comment from Yap Sofiat. So he said that, dear Secretary of Afio, thank you so much for the interesting webinar. So he would like to have the documents, okay, so that he can learn more about this CPD. So yes, our secretary will share with you the slides after the presentation, so you can have more information about it. And then we have questions from Andrew Hammersberger. So the question is to Engineer Muhammad Khair Muhammad. For the CPD hour submissions, how is the track submitted? How is that track and all submitted? Do you have an online submission system for a tool that you provide to the engineers to submit? Engineer Khair?
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Chua. In fact, I also answer online just now, but basically, yes, here in Malaysia, we have the online submission system. So the system been designed to submit all the activities that you attended under CPDs, and it's the system open for you throughout the whole year, meaning that you can always add in anytime you like and anytime you want to change or edit. For example, if I finish today for attending the talk, I can just go to the Board of Engineers online portal and just straight ahead fill up the 2 CPD hours for me. For example, if I attended the whole CPD activities for today. So you can always monitor and look at it anytime you want to. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Engineer Muhammad Khair, for addressing the questions. So now another question is also from Andrew, is to Dr. Heru. So he said that he might miss this out. There's a CPD courses offered by the website open to those outside Indonesia. So do you need to be a member to be able to do the training? Engineer, Dr. Heru, the question is to you.
Thank you for the question. It is actually all the trainings provided by PII Learning Center is open for all, regardless whether he is members or not members of PII. The thing is that if you are members of PII and you are aim to include this as the scoring in your CPD, then you can do it. But the training is open for all, not only for members, for all engineers abroad or in Indonesia.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope that Andrew got the answer from Dr. Heru. So next is a question from Engineer LT Chin. So he would like to know what is considered as a senior PE under PII. So PII has PE and senior PE. So what is the difference?
Actually, we have three categories. First is the junior PE, PE, and senior PE. PE in Indonesia, we call it IPM. Junior PE, we call it IPP, and senior PE, we call it IPU. So PE or IPM basically similar to PE in ASEAN, in APEC, in ASEAN Chartered Professional Engineer, also equivalent with PE in APEC standard, and also PE in ASEAN, I believe. The scoring is different. If you are a junior PE, you need to obtain at least 600 score. If you are PE or IPM, you need to collect 3,000 credits. And if you are IPU or senior PE, then you need to collect 6,000 points or credits or scores. So that is the difference. But IPM or PE is actually equivalent with PE in the APEC standard and ASEAN standard.
Okay, thank you so much. So I think there has another questions coming in. Possibly is for Dr. Heru as well. So he said that PE is from Johnson Davi. So he said that PE in Malaysia, is it equivalent to the IPP or IPM in Indonesia?
I believe this is equivalent to IPM in Indonesia.
IPM. Okay, thank you. Right, so let me see. There are more questions coming in. Long questions. Kumnias, Board of Engineers, Cambodia. So I would like to read down the questions. So I heard that in France, the engineering and medical professions have higher salary range than those of other professions. Not sure it is set by law or real market demand. Okay, my question is that, is there any laws or regulation in Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines to define the salary range for engineering professions based on academic degree, such as a bachelor's, master, doctorate, or professional certificates such as PE or senior PE?
Yeah, can I answer that, or is it directed to all of us?
Yeah, Engineer Romulo, please.
Yeah, I think it is based on market demand, no, in the Philippines. So using that it's a market demand, but in the government, there is a salary range, no, for on those qualifications. So it just think what is your experience, what is your academic qualification. Then it will be based on that or your position that you're applying for. This is really a salary range now fixed in the government service. But in the, of course, in the private sector, I would assume that there is also a salary based on that. But again, it's more on the your competency and the requirements of your status.
Muhammad Khair here. I believe the same thing in Malaysia as well. Basically, the salary is generally a very much market driven. Of course, if you are in the private sector, it's very much market driven. But in the government or public sector, there's always a salary scale by the government for them. Thank you very much. I think this is one of the very heavily discussed situation where in general engineers in Malaysia feel that we are a little bit on the low side in terms of salary. But again, this is very much a market driven because of board or anything is not really regulate. We cannot regulate the salary. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, our speakers. So this is a question.
Can I also share Indonesian
okay.
situation? Yeah, I think almost the same with Malaysia as well as Philippines. It's driven by market. Yeah, but I believe there should be a certain range that can be regulated in a way. For example, when, at least from PI point of view, when we manage to certify all the engineers in Indonesia with certain qualification, which is the junior PE, PE, and senior PE, and this become what you call it, law enforced regulation that all the practicing engineers has to obtain the PE certification before he can do the engineering practicing there. And if all these engineers in Indonesia have been obtained the PE certification, then PI wish to approach the government at least to make standard of range of the salary. Yeah, because now, for example, foreign engineers, they claim more professional than Indonesian engineers, just because some of them are coming from certain countries. It's difficult for now to say that their qualification is the same or equal to Indonesian engineers. But starting from application of this regulation, not only Indonesian engineers has to have PE certification, but foreign engineers who are practicing in Indonesia, they also have to have PE certification. Yeah. So if you are an American engineer having a PE certification equal to PE certification of Indonesian engineers, and then I would say there should be a certain way to regulate. And they cannot go salary 3 times higher than Indonesian engineer. And PI would like to make sure that will not happen again in Indonesia. I think that's the message that I would like to send across. Yeah, when we manage to regulate, I mean, when we manage to certify all Indonesian engineers, all foreign engineers practicing engineering in Indonesia, then such standard will apply. And if the standard of competence is applied, then standard of range of salary has to be applied as well. I think that's the mission of PI going forward. Thank you.
Okay, thanks to all our speakers for the answers. Hope that the audience are able to understand, get the points from there. Let me read out the next questions. Is from the Engineer Michael Monte Falcons, and the question is to Engineer Rumolo. So he said that I'm a master and a doctorate graduate. So how many times can I use it for the full CPD?
Yeah, for master once, for doctorate once. So you can use the masters only one time, and the doctoral also one time. Did I?
Okay, so the answer is that masters one time, doctorate one time.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Engineer Romulo. So the next questions is from Inti Ahmad Amiruddin, is to Dr. Heru. If it's reached the score requirement, for example, more than 3,000, however, our working experience less than 5 years, is it still a junior PE category or could be a PE? Thank you.
The governing for this categorization is actually the scores. normally you reach 3,000 scores when you have been working for 5 years. But if you work less than 5 years and the scores has been reached 3,000, then you are IPM, you are PE. So scores prevails than years of experience.
Okay, thank you. So next we have a questions from engineer LT Chin. So he said that since PE of PII is equal to ACPE, so what is senior PE of PII equal to?
Senior PE is not equal to anywhere else maybe. The applicable is actually PE. Senior PE is given to Indonesian who has reached a certain scores, more than 6,000 scores, 6,000 credits with extensive experience, and they will get the senior PE. But what is applicable, standardized as PE, basically is a IPM. Indonesia is IPM. For example, I'm a IPU, advanced senior PE, because of the, but it's kind of acknowledgement for Indonesian engineers who has certain qualification with certain years of working experience and certain experience in handling big projects, have been president director of a huge company and so forth. So they're qualified to obtain higher scores, and then as the acknowledgement as a senior engineer, we call it, we give them senior PE.
All right, okay. So thank you so much, Dr. Heru. So we come to the next questions. So is from engineer Rasmawata. So he said that do all countries have CPD requirement per year, or is only in Malaysia?
Is it? I think this is.
Hello.
Yes. I think this is. Who is answering this question?
Okay,
yeah, anyone can answer. For all the countries in ASEAN, do all the countries have the CPDs? Are all the countries in ASEAN countries, are all of us having these CPD requirements?
Yeah, I think this is regulated under ACPE, the ASEAN Chartered Professional Engineers. Our AR basically an agreement among professional. Nice song. By the way, AER is agreement among professional organization, yeah, in professional engineer organization. But ACPE basically agreement among nation, among countries. So when it comes to acknowledgement in terms of working permit and so forth, it will fall under the ACPE. So if you are a PE in Indonesia or PE in Malaysia or in any other ASEAN countries, then you need only to apply for the ICPE status. So if you are an ACPE, like myself, I'm an ACPE, then basically you are considered equivalent with PE in any other ASEAN countries. you are acknowledged the same. You have the same work license to practicing engineering. But work permit is different regime. Work permit is under the different what you call it, different ministerial regulation, different regulation. But talking about permit to practice engineering, basically ACP applicable to all ASEAN countries. I believe this is answering your question.
Okay, thank you so much. So now we come to a more.
Yeah. Can I comment also? Yeah, in the Philippines, if you are the credit unit is about 45 for 3 years. No? But if you are applying for an APEC or ASEAN engineer, you have to get about 150 credit units. So that is the difference only in the Philippines. Only if you apply for the APEC or ASEAN engineer, it's 150 for 3-year period. And if not applying for APEC ASEAN engineer, just renewing your license to practice, but about 45 credit unit per 3 years, or 15 credit unit per year. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Romulo. So next we have a very relevant questions, and this question is asked by a few of our audience here today. So this question is regarding the common CPD, okay, among the ASEAN country or harmonization. So the question is from Engineer Yao. So he said that currently the CPD's issues are confined to each country, individual country only. Would there be the possibility to utilize the CPD of other ASEAN countries for the CPD of the country of the engineers which is, who is registered? So in short, is there any possibility to have a common CPD to be used in ASEAN? And then this is also linked to the questions or comment by Dr. Tan Chi Fai. So he said that he would like to know about the harmonizations of CPD among ASEAN countries. So if we plan to go for that, what could be the challenges and opportunities? And also he would like to know the time frame if this happens. So maybe Engineer Kiel, you can start first.
Thank you. I believe this issue has been very much discussed at the AFIO or AAR in this case. You know, as far as concerned, every country has its own way of defining how the CPD and so on, even though it's to have a common CPD, maybe in this case, what I can foresee for the time being is just some of the activities as were defined in Malaysia, for example, attending conference and technical, that what we organize here in this country, for example, can be accepted by other countries. For example, like today's forum, if we say, for example, is arranged or organized by certain countries or certain institutions. So as part of the submission for CPD for other countries, if it can be accepted as a pre-approved CPD activities, this program can be approved in Indonesia, for example. So that can be, you know, possible. But certain activities, certain CPD activities is common to each country, for example. So it's up to the regulators of each country to accept it. It's not, it's up to the regulators or to the board, in this case, Board of Engineers, to accept it, for example. But if the basic principle, we go back to basic principle just now, is any CPD activities, any activities that can help the professional engineers in doing or performing his professional service, in general, that is considered CPD. And in Malaysia case, CPD is also very much self-regulated or self-declared, rather than, you have to attend something that's only being approved by certain institution or organization. No, not necessary. So anything, in our definition, anything that is being considered fall under CPD activities, even though it's not pre-approved, but you can declare it and submit it as part of the CPD for this. And when we audit this thing in Malaysia, we did accept it, even though it's not, without any confirmation numbers or things like that from each institution. Thank you. I'll give others to explain as well. Dr. Heru.
Yeah, David, if I may comment.
Yes, please, Engineer Romulo.
I think in our case, we don't have a problem if we get some CPD outside the Philippines. What we only look, if we got the certificates, it says there that attended 3 days. Then we look at the category and we just convert it to the credit unit that applies to our country. You know? Let's say I attended conference. Let's say we have also a conference. They say 1 credit unit per hour. If I attended the 8 hours conference, then I just multiply it by 8 hours. So I think we don't have the problem. We don't have to. I don't know. But what I'm saying, there is no problem in converting the credit unit that we earn outside the Philippines and going back to the Philippines. We just convert it to the requirements of our regulated profession. So I think harmonizing it is good, but at this point in time might be not feasible or very hard. But in our case, as I said, we don't have a problem converting the credit unit to whatever points that we earn outside the Philippines. That is my reaction, David.
Okay. Thank you, Engineer Romulo. How about Dr. Heru? Do you have any additional comments on this?
Yes, I think the PE certification as well as CPD is the same in most countries. Basically, is based on RPL, self-claim RPL, recognition of past learning. However, there are differences in ASEAN countries, in each countries. Now, if the question is whether we can have a common CPD system, the answer is yes, but it will be very challenging. In ASEAN countries, basically you need to harmonize different system in different countries, and harmonizing is more difficult. One way is if there is a certain standard of CPD established, say by independently by AAR commissioner, AAR commissioner, for example, as a new standard, and all other countries has to follow that standard. So it's not talking about harmonizing, but we establish a new standard for CPD, and then all countries has to follow that standard. That can be done. But harmonizing is a mission impossible. Only Ethan Hawke from the Mission Impossible movie can do it. But like in APEC, in APEC, basically there is a standard for PE certification system, and those who want to be member of APEC Engineer Register, basically you have to follow that standard to meet that standard. Then you have a standardized PE certification and standardized CPD. Yeah. For example, engineering education in the Washington Accord, there is a standard provided, set up by the Washington Accord. Then everybody who want to be a member of Washington Accord has to meet that standard. That can be done. But harmonizing 10 countries is a mission impossible. Yeah, only Ethan Hawke of the Mission Impossible movie can do it. I think. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Haru, for your comments. So I think that a lot of us over here, they really would like to have this common recognition of each other's CPD. That's why Dr. Haru mentions that one of the way is to have like a standard, then everyone can follow, and then wherever you get your CPD is recognized. You get it from another country, you can be recognized in your own country, and possibly we can do it through our AFIO. Okay, and then for this thing to happen, do you think that there is a time frame for this? How fast it can be done?
That's very hard to answer. As Hero said,
everyone is looking forward to it.
Depending on the strategy, if you try to harmonize it, then it will take maybe it takes forever. Yeah, because it's not easy to harmonize. Even 2 countries, you harmonize it is difficult. 10 countries, you harmonize it is almost impossible. Yeah, even though me and Romy is a good friend, not necessarily we can harmonize things.
Yeah, right.
But you need to set up a new a standard independently. Yeah. Then everybody follow that standard. Then that's one possibility, and we can talk about the time frame if we follow that approach.
Yeah, if we approach that like the APEC engineer or Washington Accord, I think, and everybody follows on that. I think we have only one standard for all the applicants of this, let's say, ASEAN engineer. If you pattern it against the APEC engineer or the International Progress Engineering Agreement, so say if you apply for this agreement, then you have to follow this. So I think that's more easier to do rather than harmonizing all the different CPD programs of each 10 countries. As Hiro said, 1 or 2 is very difficult, much more for the 10 countries.
Maybe we can look into this thing in the next midterm meeting of AFIO, because I believe this one has been discussed regularly. Maybe there's some suggestion during that meeting later on. Maybe the possibility of setting up some working group or task force to probably deliberate more a little bit on the CPD method, perhaps, rather than we are like Dr. Heru said just now, it's almost impossible if we talk about harmonize. But can explore the possibility on, I feel can give some, CPD program or CPD standard certification and so on. Maybe, perhaps.
Yeah, certainly everyone is looking forward to these CPDs, ASEAN CPD, and mutual recognitions that we can use it we obtain it in another country, but we can use it in our own country. So I know that many questions are still coming in, but we have limited time towards the end of the webinar. So if you have more questions, you can key in and leave your name. Our secretariat will try to respond to you. Okay, so thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us towards the end of our program today. And again, many have requested to have the slide. We will send out the slide to the attendees after the events. So we would like to take this opportunity to thank all our distinguished guests, Engineer Muhammad Keel, Dr. Heru, and also Engineers Romulo, for their times on this Saturday morning to share with us a very knowledgeable and informative program on CPD process, okay, in their respective countries. So before we end, let's quickly take group photos, okay? Please turn on your camera. Okay, Secretary, is it done?
Dr. David, just give, okay, in a count of 1, 2, 3. We've got 6 pages actually.
Okay.
So we've done first page. Okay, we're moving on to the second page. 1, 2, 3. Okay,
It's good. We have a big group of audience today.
yep. And now third page. Okay, third page done. We're moving to fourth page. Okay, all right. Okay, so we are done now. We have done taking photos. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Secretariats, all our speakers and everyone. So have a good day. Take care.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
For sharing.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a nice and healthy days.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Romero.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Zero, thank
See
you.
you. See you next time.
Yes, see you.
See you. See you. Thank you. Thank you.
See you. Bye-bye.
Iya, di ka na. Tayo papasok.
Mr. David, maybe Mrs. Pali, maybe could you please send the picture, the test for also the certificate for CPD also. Thank you. Thank you.